You don't touch my son. Ever. Daniel Whitaker's voice slices through the quiet of his Chicago estate's living room, sharp as a blade, his eyes blazing with accusation. Amara Johnson freezes, her arms cradling 9-year-old Lucas, whose small hands clutch her shirt. The boy, usually a storm of restless energy, sits still, his face soft, almost smiling, as Amara's low hum of an old folk song lingers in the air. Her heart slams against her ribs, a caged bird desperate to escape. She opens her mouth, but Daniel's hand shoots up, silencing her before a word escapes. Don't, he snaps, stepping closer, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood. You're the maid. You clean. You don't play mother to my boy. His words sting, each one a jab at her place, her skin, her existence in his world. Amara's jaw tightens, teeth grinding as she fights the urge to flinch. Lucas, sensing the shift, whimpers softly, his fingers digging into her arm. She wants to soothe him, to whisper that it's okay. But Daniel's glare pins her in place, a predator sizing up prey. I was just, she starts, her voice steady but low, trying to explain that Lucas had been spiraling, his autistic meltdown tearing through him until her song calmed the chaos. Daniel cuts her off again, his face a mask of fury. I said don't. You think you know him? You think you belong here? His voice rises, each syllable dripping with disdain, as if her care for Lucas is a crime. Amara's chest burns, but she holds his gaze, her dark eyes unyielding despite the tremor in her hands. Lucas shifts in her arms, his small body tensing. Amara, he mumbles, his voice a rare clarity that pierces the room. Daniel's head snaps toward his son, shock flickering across his face, but it's gone in an instant, replaced by a scowl. Get out, he orders Amara, pointing to the door. Pack your things. You're done. The command lands like a punch, and Amara's breath catches, her throat tightening as if squeezed by an invisible hand. She gently sets Lucas down, her hands steady despite the storm inside her. The boy clings to her, his eyes wide with confusion, but she forces a calm smile, brushing his cheek. I'm not his mother, she says, her voice low, deliberate, locking eyes with Daniel. But he needed someone, and you weren't here. The words cut, not with malice, but with truth, and Daniel's face twitches, a crack in his armor. Amara stands, her spine straight, refusing to shrink under his stare. She walks toward the door, each step measured, her heart pounding like a drum. Lucas lets out a soft cry, and Daniel's hand hesitates midair, as if torn between reaching for his son or stopping her. The front door looms ahead, cold and final. Amara's fingers grip her worn jacket, the fabric rough against her skin. She doesn't look back, but she feels Daniel's eyes boring into her, a mix of anger and something unspoken. Doubt, perhaps. As she steps into the hallway, the echo of Lucas's whimper follows her, a sound that claws at her resolve. She pauses, just for a moment, her fist clenching at her side. This isn't over, she thinks, but she says nothing, letting the weight of her silence speak louder than words. The door clicks shut behind her, and the estate falls quiet, save for the faint sound of Lucas's distress. Daniel stands frozen, his fists balled, the air heavy with the injustice he's just unleashed. Somewhere in the shadows of the room, a small, overlooked book, a gift from Amara to Lucas, rests on the coffee table, its pages worn from use, a silent testament to her care. Amara Johnson's footsteps echo in the cavernous hallway of the Whitaker estate, each one a deliberate strike against the polished marble. Her jaw clenches so tight her teeth ache, a dam holding back the flood of hurt and fury. Daniel's words, "You're the maid! You clean!" slice through her mind, sharp as broken glass, but she refuses to let them break her. Her hands grip the straps of her worn canvas bag, fingers digging into the rough fabric as if anchoring her to the ground. She won't crumble. Not here. Not in this house where her worth was just trampled. Lucas's soft cry still rings in her ears, a jagged wound she can't soothe. She pauses at the grand oak door, her breath hitching, and glances back toward the living room. The boy's small frame huddles on the couch, his hands twisting in distress, his eyes searching for her. Amara's chest tightens, her heart a fist pounding against her ribs. She wants to run to him, to kneel and hum that folk song again, the one that stilled his storm. But Daniel stands there, a towering shadow, his face a storm of its own. Anger, confusion, and something else she can't name. Amara, Lucas whimpers, his voice cutting through the silence like a plea. Daniel's head snaps toward his son, but he doesn't move, doesn't soften. Amara's lips part, instinct urging her to respond, but she bites down hard, her tongue tasting the metallic tang of restraint. She won't beg. She won't plead for a man who sees her as less than human to understand her heart. Instead, she straightens, her spine a steel rod, and meets Daniel's gaze one last time. I didn't touch your son to steal him, she says, her voice low, steady, each word a measured strike. I held him because he was scared, because he needed someone to see him. You might not see me, Mr. Whitaker, but Lucas does. Her words land like a thrown knife, precise and piercing. Daniel's eyes flicker, a muscle in his jaw twitching, but he doesn't speak. His silence is louder than his earlier shouts, a confession of doubt he won't yet voice. Amara turns, her movements deliberate, refusing to rush or cower. The door handle is cold under her fingers, a stark contrast to the heat rising in her chest. She pushes it open, the Chicago evening air hitting her like a slap, sharp and unforgiving. The estate looms behind her, its wealth a mocking backdrop to her exit. She steps out, bag slung over her shoulder, and lets the door close with a soft thud that feels final, like the end of a chapter she never meant to write. Outside, the driveway stretches endlessly, lined with manicured hedges that seem to whisper judgment. Amara's boots crunch against the gravel, each step a declaration of her refusal to break. Her eyes burn, but she blinks hard, forcing the tears back. She won't cry, not for Daniel's cruelty, not for the injustice of being cast out for caring. Lucas's face flashes in her mind, his rare smile when she sang, his small hand in hers. That memory is hers, and no one, not even a billionaire, can take it away. She reaches the gate, where Thomas, the old butler, waits, his weathered face creased with concern. Amara, he says, voice low, you didn't deserve that. She offers a faint nod, her lips pressed tight. I know, she replies, her voice barely above a whisper, but heavy with conviction. But Lucas didn't deserve to lose someone who sees him. Tell him I'll be okay. Thomas's eyes soften, but she doesn't linger, stepping past him into the street, her silhouette swallowed by the city's dusk. Back in the house, Daniel stands rooted, Lucas's whimpers growing louder, a sound that claws at his resolve. He glances at the coffee table where Amara's sensory book lies, its bright cover a quiet rebuke. His fingers twitch, as if to reach for it, but he stops, his chest tight with something he can't name. Guilt, perhaps, or the first crack in his certainty. The silence of the estate presses in, heavy with the weight of what he's done, and the echo of Amara's words lingers. You might not see me, but Lucas does. Daniel Whitaker stands alone in the dim living room, his fists still clenched, the echo of the slammed door ringing in his ears like a gunshot. Lucas's whimpers have softened to a low, keening hum, the kind that slices through Daniel's chest sharper than any blade. The boy sits curled on the couch, rocking slightly, his small hands twisting the hem of his shirt. Daniel's throat tightens, his jaw grinding as he fights the urge to move, to fix this, to erase the last 10 minutes. He's a man who commands boardrooms, who bends markets to his will. But here, in his own home, he's powerless against his son's distress. He steps toward Lucas, his polished shoes scuffing the hardwood, and kneels, voice low. Hey, buddy, I'm here. Lucas doesn't look up, his eyes fixed on some invisible point, his rocking faster now, a silent rebellion against his father's presence. Daniel's hand hovers, wanting to touch, to comfort, but it falls back to his side, heavy with doubt. He's seen Lucas like this before, after his wife Claire died, when the world became too loud, too sharp for his son's fragile senses. But tonight, it's different. Tonight, Lucas isn't just lost in his autism. He's grieving something, someone Daniel sent away. His gaze drifts to the coffee table, where a bright sensory book lies, its cover worn from Lucas's small fingers. Daniel picks it up, and the weight of it is heavier than it should be. He flips it open, and a small handwritten note slips out, fluttering to the floor like a confession. His heart stutters as he retrieves it, the paper soft and creased. In Amara's neat script, it reads, "For Lucas, to find light on hard days. Amara." The words hit like a fist, each one a rebuke to his rage, his assumptions. His fingers tighten around the note, crumpling the edges, as a hot flush of shame creeps up his neck. He looks at Lucas, who's still rocking, still humming, and the truth sinks in like a stone. Amara wasn't stealing his son. She was saving him. Daniel's mind replays her final words. "You might not see me, but Lucas does." And they burn now, not with accusation, but with clarity. He'd seen a black maid, a hired hand, and assumed trespass. But Lucas saw safety, a tether in his chaotic world. Daniel's chest aches, his breath shallow, as he realizes he's ripped that tether away. He stands, pacing the room, the book still in his grip. His eyes catch on Lucas's backpack, slung carelessly against the wall. He crosses to it, driven by an instinct he can't name, and unzips it. Inside, among crayons and crumpled worksheets, is a folded drawing. Daniel pulls it out, his hands unsteady. It's Lucas's work, a rare glimpse into his son's mind. A stick figure with dark skin and a wide smile, holding hands with a smaller figure labeled me. Above the woman's head in shaky letters is Amara. Daniel's knees weaken, and he sinks to the floor, the drawing trembling in his hands. Lucas doesn't draw people. Not Claire, not him, but Amara. She's there, vivid and real, in his son's heart. The shame twists deeper, a knife in his gut. He'd called her a threat, but this book, this drawing, is proof of her care, her impact. Daniel's fingers trace the note's words, and his mind flashes to something else. A torn letter he'd glimpsed in Amara's bag as she packed. It was old, its edges frayed, with the name Malik scrawled in angry red ink and a phrase that chilled him. "You can't hide forever." He hadn't thought much of it then, too consumed by his own fury, but now it gnaws at him, a shadow of something darker. Who is Malik? Why was Amara hiding? The questions coil in his mind, planting a seed of mystery he can't shake. Daniel looks back at Lucas, whose rocking has slowed, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. "I'm sorry, buddy," he whispers, his voice cracking. But Lucas doesn't respond. The room feels smaller now, the air thick with Daniel's regret. He clutches the book and drawing, his knuckles white, knowing he's made a mistake he can't undo with power or money. Amara's absence is a wound, and Lucas feels it most. Daniel's resolve hardens. He needs to find her, to understand what he's missed. The sensory book rests on his lap, its bright cover a beacon in the dim light, urging him toward a truth he's not yet ready to face. "You think you can erase what you did with an apology?" Amara Johnson's voice cuts like a whip, her arms crossed tight across her chest, her eyes blazing as she faces Daniel Whitaker in the cramped office of a South Chicago community center. The air crackles with tension, her words a direct challenge to the billionaire standing before her. His tailored coat out of place among the worn chairs and faded posters. Daniel's jaw clenches, his fingers twitching at his sides. The sensory book, Amara's gift to Lucas, clutched in his hand like a lifeline. He'd driven through the city's maze of neon-lit streets to find her, driven by the weight of his son's silence and the crumpled note that burned a hole in his conscience. For Lucas, to find light on hard days, Amara. "I was wrong," Daniel says, his voice low, raw, each syllable scraped from a place he rarely touches. "I saw you with Lucas and assumed the worst. I'm here to fix it." Amara's lips press into a thin line, her teeth grinding as she fights the urge to turn away. Her heart pounds, a drumbeat of hurt and defiance. She spent years building walls against men like him, men who see her skin, her job, and assume she's nothing more than a shadow in their world. But Lucas's face, His rare smile flashes in her mind, and she stays rooted, her gaze unyielding. Fix it? She snaps, stepping closer, her boots scuffing the linoleum floor. You didn't just fire me, Mr. Whitaker. You humiliated me. You looked at me like I was a thief stealing your son. Her voice trembles, not with weakness, but with the fury of being unseen. Daniel flinches, his shoulders stiffening, but he doesn't interrupt, doesn't dare. He knows she's right, and the shame twists in his gut like a blade. The drawing Lucas made, Amara's stick figure holding his son's hand, haunts him, a silent accusation of his blindness. I didn't know, he says, his voice cracking, holding up the sensory book. This, the way Lucas looks at you, I didn't see it then, but I see it now. Amara's eyes flicker to the book, her chest tightening. She remembers buying it, spending half her paycheck to give Lucas something to anchor him when the world overwhelmed him. She remembers his small fingers tracing the textured pages, his soft hums matching hers. Her hands ball into fists, nails biting into her palms as she fights the pull to forgive too easily. You see it now because Lucas is suffering, she says, her words sharp, each one a deliberate strike. You didn't care when I was trying to help him. You cared about your control, your rules. Daniel's face pales, his knuckles whitening around the book. He steps forward, his voice urgent. He's not eating, Amara. He's not talking. He's shutting down. And it's my fault. I need you to come back. For him. The plea hangs between them, raw and heavy, but Amara's gaze doesn't soften. She turns, pacing the small office, her boots clicking with purpose. The walls feel closer, the air thicker, as memories of her own pain. Her brother Malik's betrayal, the threats that forced her to run, claw at her resolve. She stops, facing Daniel again, her eyes fierce. I'm not a tool you call back when you break something, she says. I'm a person, and I don't trust you to see that. Daniel's breath catches, his chest heaving as if her words have knocked the air from him. He wants to argue, to promise, but her gaze pins him, demanding more than words. He sets the book on the desk between them, a gesture of surrender. I don't know how to do this, he admits, his voice barely above a whisper. I've been alone with him since Claire died. I thought I was protecting him, but I'm failing him. You're not. Amara's fingers twitch, itching to pick up the book, to hold on to the piece of herself she gave to Lucas. But she doesn't move. She can't. Not yet. Outside, the hum of the community center buzzes. Children's laughter, the clatter of chairs. Amara's life here, helping kids like Lucas, is her anchor, her proof she's more than what Daniel saw. But Lucas's face, his whimper when she left, tugs at her heart, a rope pulling her back. I'll think about it, she says finally, her voice firm but softer, a crack in her armor. But not for you, for Lucas. Daniel nods, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. Gratitude, maybe, or the weight of his own failures. As he turns to leave, Amara's gaze falls on the book, its bright cover a beacon in the dim office. Her fingers brush its edge, and a memory surfaces. The torn letter in her bag, Malik's red ink threat. You can't hide forever. Her heart skips, a cold shiver running down her spine. She doesn't know Daniel saw it, doesn't know it's already planted a seed in his mind. The door clicks shut behind him, and Amara stands alone, the book in her hands, a silent promise to Lucas, and a warning of a past that's catching up. Sing it again, Miss Amara. A small boy's voice pierces the hum of the South Chicago Community Center, his hands flapping with excitement. Amara Johnson kneels beside him, her smile warm but strained, her fingers gripping a worn guitar as she strums a gentle chord. The room buzzes with energy, kids giggling, chairs scraping, a whiteboard scrawled with song lyrics in her neat handwriting. Her heart thumps, heavy with the echo of Daniel Whitaker's plea from hours ago. I need you to come back, for him. She pushes it down, focusing on the children, her anchor in a world that's just tried to break her again. Her boots scuff the linoleum as she moves to another child, a girl with pigtails clutching a sensory ball Amara gave her. You got this, Tiana, she says, her voice soft but firm, guiding the girl's small hands to squeeze the ball in rhythm with the music. Amara's chest tightens, her jaw clenching as Lucas's face flashes in her mind. His rare smile when she sang to him, his small hand in hers. She shakes it off, her fingers strumming harder, the notes a shield against the pain of being cast out by Daniel, his words still burning. You're the maid. You clean. The center is her sanctuary, a cramped haven of chipped paint and secondhand instruments where she teaches autistic kids to find calm in music. Her dark eyes scan the room, catching the flicker of trust in each child's gaze. She's no stranger to being unseen. Years of cleaning houses, fading into the background, her past a shadow she's outrun. But here, she's more. Here, she's the woman who knows how to soothe a meltdown with a song, who learned to navigate chaos caring for her childhood friend, Jamal, who was autistic like Lucas. Her hands tremble slightly, the guitar strings biting into her fingertips, a reminder of the strength she's fought to keep. Amara, you okay? Carla, a fellow volunteer, leans in, her voice low, her brow creased with concern. Amara's lips press tight, her teeth grinding as she forces a nod. Just a rough day, she says, her words clipped, dodging the truth. Carla's eyes narrow, sensing the weight Amara carries. Heard you got fired from that fancy estate. What happened? Amara's fingers falter on the strings, a sour note ringing out. She doesn't want to relive Daniel's accusations, the way his voice cut her down to her skin, her job, her place. But Carla's gaze is steady, and Amara's resolve softens. I tried to help his kid, she says, her voice low, each word measured. He saw a maid overstepping, not a person. Her chest burns, the injustice a hot coal in her throat. Carla shakes her head, muttering, rich folks. Amara's lips twitch, a ghost of a smile, but her heart isn't in it. She turns back to the kids, leading them through a clapping game, her hands steady despite the storm inside. She's always been good at this, hiding her pain, pouring it into others' healing. It's why she stayed in caregiving, even after dropping out of her child psychology program, chased away by her brother Malik's threats and the debts he dragged her into. A memory surfaces, Jamal, her old friend, laughing as she sang to him, his hands flapping like the boys today. She'd studied psychology for him, to understand his world, but Malik's shadow, his gambling, his violence, stole that dream. Amara's fingers tighten on the guitar, her knuckles whitening. She won't let that past define her here. These kids see her, need her, just like Lucas did. Her throat tightens at the thought of him, alone now, rocking in silence without her song. Carla steps closer, lowering her voice. You were studying to be a shrink, right? Before whatever happened. Amara's breath catches, her eyes flickering to Carla's. Yeah, she says, her voice barely audible. Life got in the way. Carla nods, not pushing, but her gaze lingers, seeing more than Amara wants to share. You're good with these kids, Carla says. Better than most. Whatever happened at that house, it's their loss. Amara's chest swells, her fingers pausing on the strings. She wants to believe it, but Lucas's whimper as she left the estate claws at her, a wound that won't close. She leads the kids through one last song, her voice steady, a beacon in their chaos. As they clap and sway, she feels the weight of her choice, to stay strong, to keep showing up, even when the world tries to erase her. The session ends and the kids scatter, their laughter echoing. Amara sets the guitar down, her hands shaking slightly, her heart heavy with the pull of Lucas and the sting of Daniel's rejection. She's not broken, not yet, but the cracks are there, and she feels them widening. As she gathers her things, her fingers brush a small notebook in her bag, one she used to jot down song ideas for Lucas. She flips it open, and a loose page slips out, a sketch she'd made of Lucas smiling, his eyes bright. Her breath hitches, her fingers tracing the lines. She's still here, still fighting, but the question lingers. Can she go back to a place that didn't see her? The notebook stays open in her hands, a fragile bridge to a boy who needs her, and a man who might yet learn to see. You think one sorry undoes what you broke? Amara Johnson's voice lashes out, sharp and unyielding, as she stands in the community center's cramped office, her arms crossed, her eyes boring into Daniel Whitaker's. Her heart hammers, a relentless drumbeat of defiance, her fingers digging into her biceps to keep from shaking. Daniel stands across from her, his tailored coat crumpled, the sensory book still clutched in his hand like a guilty verdict. Behind him, Lucas huddles in the doorway, his small frame rocking slightly, his eyes locked on Amara with a desperate flicker of recognition. The air crackles, thick with the weight of Daniel's earlier betrayal. His words, "You're the maid. You clean," still searing her mind like a brand. "I broke something," Daniel says, his voice raw, each word scraped from a place he's kept buried since his wife's death. "I know that now. Lucas needs you, Amara. I need you to come back." His plea is a blade, cutting through the silence, but Amara's jaw tightens, her teeth grinding as she fights the urge to turn away. Lucas's soft hum, a sound she knows too well, pulls at her heart, but she won't bend. Not yet. Not for a man who saw her as less than human. "Need me?" she snaps, stepping forward, her boots striking the linoleum with purpose. "You needed me gone when you thought I was a threat. You didn't see me, Daniel. You saw a black maid stepping out of line." Her words are daggers, each one aimed at his pride, his privilege. Daniel's face twitches, a muscle in his cheek jumping, but he doesn't interrupt, doesn't dare. His hands clench around the book, knuckles white as shame burns in his chest. He knows she's right. His rage, his assumptions, were a wall he built to keep Lucas safe, but they shut out the one person who reached his son. Lucas shifts, his hum growing louder, and Amara's gaze flicks to him. Her heart twists, her breath catching, as she sees the boy's fingers twisting the hem of his shirt, his eyes pleading. She kneels, her voice softening but firm. "Hey, Lucas, I'm right here," she says, her hand hovering near his, not touching, respecting his space. His rocking slows, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment the room feels smaller, the world reduced to just them. Daniel watches, his throat tightening, a pang of envy mixing with awe. He's never calmed Lucas like that, never known how. "I was wrong," Daniel says, stepping closer, his voice low, urgent. "I saw you with him and panicked. I thought I was protecting him, but I hurt him. I hurt you." Amara stands, her eyes narrowing, searching his face for lies. She sees none, but trust is a fragile thing, and hers is cracked. "Words are cheap," she says, her voice steady, cutting. "You want me back? Prove I'm more than a maid to you. Prove Lucas matters more than your ego." Daniel nods, his shoulders sagging, as if her challenge has stripped him bare. "I'll prove it," he says, his voice cracking with resolve. "Come back. For Lucas. For as long as you're willing." Amara's chest tightens, her nails biting into her palms. She wants to say no, to walk away from the man who humiliated her, but Lucas's soft hum anchors her. She glances at him, his small hand reaching out, not quite touching her, and her resolve wavers. "For Lucas," she says finally, her voice firm but softer, a crack in her armor. "But on my terms. I'm his caregiver, not your servant. No more yelling, no more assuming. You treat me like I matter, or I'm gone for good." Daniel nods, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. Gratitude, maybe, or the weight of his own failures. "Agreed," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. Amara exhales, her shoulders loosening, but the tension lingers, a taut wire between them. She turns to gather her things, her movements deliberate, her heart still racing. As she reaches for her bag, a small faded photograph slips out, fluttering to the floor. Daniel bends to pick it up before she can stop him, his fingers brushing the worn edges. It's a picture of a younger Amara, standing beside a man with hard eyes and a crooked smile. Her brother, Malik. "Who's this?" Daniel asks, his voice cautious, his eyes flicking to hers. Amara's breath catches, her hand snatching the photo back, her fingers trembling. "Nobody," she says, too quick, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. But Daniel's gaze lingers, his mind flashing to the torn letter he saw in her bag. Malik. You can't hide forever. The name burns in his memory, a puzzle piece he can't place. Amara stuffs the photo into her bag, her movements jerky, her heart pounding as memories of Malik's threats flood back. His voice, his fists, the life she fled. She slings the bag over her shoulder, her eyes meeting Daniel's again. Defiant. "Let's go," she says, nodding toward Lucas. "He needs me now." Daniel steps aside, letting her pass, but his mind churns. The photograph a shadow he can't shake. Amara walks toward Lucas, kneeling to take his hand, her touch gentle but firm. The boy's hum softens, his small fingers curling around hers, and for a moment, the world feels right again. But as they leave the center, Daniel trailing behind, the photograph lingers in his thoughts, a silent warning of a past that's closing in. Amara's boots hit the pavement outside, each step a declaration of her return. Not as a maid, but as someone who belongs. Lucas clings to her hand, his trust a weight she carries willingly. Daniel follows, the sensory book still in his grip, a reminder of his debt to her. The Chicago night hums around them, but in Amara's bag the photograph lies hidden, a ticking bomb waiting to explode. "You're a liability, Amara. You'll drag this family into the gutter." Margaret Whitaker's voice slices through the dining room of the Whitaker estate, her words dripping with venom as she glares at Amara Johnson. Her manicured nails tap the polished table, each click a hammer striking Amara's resolve. Amara stands near the doorway, her arms crossed, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ache, fighting the urge to snap back. She's back in the house as Lucas's caregiver, but Margaret, Daniel's older sister, looms like a storm, her tailored blazer and cold eyes screaming privilege. The air crackles, thick with accusation, as Lucas plays quietly in the corner, his small hands clutching a sensory ball Amara gave him. "You don't belong here," Margaret continues, stepping closer, her heels clicking like gunfire. "A maid playing nanny? It's a scandal waiting to happen." Amara's chest burns, her fingers digging into her biceps to keep from shaking. She's faced this before. Judgment for her skin, her job. But Margaret's attack feels personal, a blade aimed at her heart. "I'm here for Lucas," Amara says, her voice low, steady, each word a shield. "Not for your approval." Margaret's lips curl, a smirk that cuts deeper than words. "Don't play noble," Margaret snaps, cutting her off. "I know about your past, Malik. Trouble follows you, doesn't it?" Amara's breath catches, her heart slamming against her ribs. The name, Malik, her brother, hits like a fist, dragging up memories of his fists, his threats, the life she fled. How does Margaret know? Her eyes narrow, searching Margaret's face for answers. But the older woman's gaze is icy, unyielding. "You're a risk," Margaret says, her voice a hiss, "and I protect this family's name." Daniel steps into the room, his shoulders tense, his face darkening as he catches the tail end of the exchange. "Enough, Margaret," he says, his voice sharp, cutting through the tension. "Amara's here because I asked her to be. For Lucas." Margaret's head snaps toward him, her eyes flashing with disdain. "You're blind, Daniel," she says. "She's not just a maid. She's a problem. I've heard things. Dangerous things." Daniel's jaw tightens, his fists clenching at his sides. But Amara's gaze flicks to him, a silent plea to stay calm. "I'm not your problem," Amara says, stepping forward, her boots firm against the floor. "Your brother's trust is what matters, not your rumors." Margaret's smirk falters, but she recovers, leaning in. "Trust? You think trust erases a criminal past? I've got emails, proof about your brother. You can't hide from that." Amara's heart stutters, her nails biting into her palms. "Emails? Proof?" The photograph from her bag, Malik's face, his crooked smile, flashes in her mind, a ghost she thought she'd buried. Daniel steps between them, his voice low, dangerous. "Back off, Margaret. You don't get to dictate who stays in my house." Margaret's eyes narrow, but she doesn't retreat. "This isn't just your house," she says. "It's our legacy, and she'll ruin it." Her words hang heavy, a threat wrapped in silk. Amara's chest tightens, her breath shallow, as she realizes Margaret's not just attacking her. She's hiding something, a plan bigger than personal dislike. The mention of Malik, the emails, feels like a trap closing in. Lucas's soft hum breaks the silence, his sensory ball rolling across the floor toward Amara. She kneels, picking it up, her hands steady despite the storm inside her. "I'm here for him," she says, her voice cutting through Margaret's venom, her eyes locked on Daniel. "Not for your family's games." Daniel nods, his gaze softening, but Margaret's smirk returns, colder now. "We'll see," she says, turning on her heel, her departure a promise of more to come. Amara hands the ball to Lucas, her fingers brushing his, her heart racing as she feels Margaret's words linger like poison. Daniel watches her, his eyes heavy with questions he doesn't voice. The photograph, Malik's name, the emails, pieces of a puzzle that neither fully understands. Amara's resolve hardens, her jaw set as she meets Daniel's gaze. "She knows too much," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel's brow furrows, his hand twitching, as if to reach for her, but he stops. The air hums with unspoken danger, and Amara knows. Margaret's not just a threat, she's a hunter, and Amara's past is her prey. The sensory ball rests in Lucas's hands, its bright colors a stark contrast to the shadow creeping over the estate. Amara's fingers linger on it, her heart pounding with the certainty that Margaret's words are only the beginning of a larger fight. "You're digging your own grave, Amara." The anonymous email's words sear into Amara Johnson's mind, her fingers gripping the phone so tight her knuckles bleach white. She stands in the Whitaker estate's kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator a faint pulse against the storm raging inside her. Her jaw clenches, teeth grinding as she rereads the message, its venom echoing Margaret Whitaker's earlier attack. Malik. Trouble follows you. The name of her brother, a ghost she thought she'd outrun, claws at her, dragging up memories of his fists, his threats, the life she fled in Chicago's underbelly. Her heart pounds a relentless drumbeat as she fights the urge to bolt, to disappear again. Daniel Whitaker strides in, his face taut, his eyes scanning her like a man searching for cracks in a dam. "What's that?" he asks, his voice sharp, nodding at the phone. Amara's breath catches, her fingers trembling as she hesitates. She doesn't want to let him in, doesn't want to expose the raw wound of her past. But Lucas's soft hum from the living room, his small hands clutching the sensory ball she gave him, anchors her. She can't run, not from him. "It's about Malik," she says, her voice low, each word a stone dropped into still water. "Someone knows he's my brother. Someone's watching me." Daniel's eyes narrow, his fists clenching at his sides. "Margaret," he says, the name a growl. "She mentioned him yesterday. She's behind this." Amara shakes her head, her lips pressing tight. "Maybe, but she's not working alone." Her mind flashes to the photograph that slipped from her bag, Malik's hard eyes staring back, and the torn letter Daniel saw. "You can't hide forever. The pieces don't fit, not yet, but the threat feels closer now, a noose tightening around her neck." "We need to find out who," Daniel says, stepping closer, his voice urgent, cutting through the air like a blade. He turns to Thomas, the butler, who's lingered quietly by the door, his weathered face creased with concern. "Thomas, you've got contacts. Can you dig into this?" Thomas nods, his hands folding tight, a soldier ready for battle. "I know a guy, ex-cop. He can trace emails, phone records, anything." Amara's chest tightens, her nails biting into her palms. She spent years hiding, keeping her past locked away, but now it's spilling out, and she's not sure she's ready to face it. They move to Daniel's study, a room of dark wood and heavy silence. Amara sits, her boots tapping restlessly against the floor, while Thomas makes calls, his voice low, clipped. Daniel paces, his shoulders rigid, his fingers twitching as if itching to break something. "If Margaret's digging into your past," he says, "she's got a reason. She's too calculated for this to be just spite." Amara's eyes flicker to him, her heart racing. "She said I'd ruin your legacy," she says. "What's she protecting?" Daniel stops, his jaw tightening, a shadow crossing his face. "I don't know, but I'll find out." Thomas hangs up, his face grim. "My guy found something. The email came from a burner account, routed through a VPN. But there's a lead, a PI firm Margaret's been paying for months." Amara's breath hitches, her fingers gripping the armrest. A private investigator, she asks, her voice sharp. Thomas nods. They've been tailing you, Amara. Got files on your old life, your brother, even court records from 10 years ago. Her heart stutters, her mind reeling. Court records. The testimony she gave anonymously against Malik's crime ring, the reason she ran, changed her name, and became invisible. Someone's peeling back that veil. Court records? Daniel asks, his voice low, dangerous. What's in them? Amara's throat closes, her teeth grinding as she fights the urge to shut down. She stands pacing, her boots striking the floor like a metronome. I testified against Malik, she says finally, her voice raw. Each word a wound reopened. He was running drugs, debts, pulling me in to clean up his mess. I got out, turned him in, but he swore he'd find me. Her hands shake, her nails digging deeper into her palms, drawing a faint sting of blood. Daniel's eyes widen, his fists unclenching, replaced by a flicker of awe, of guilt. You testified? He asked, stepping closer. You took down a crime ring? Amara's lips twist, a bitter smile. I survived. That's all. But her voice trembles, betraying the weight of those years. Malik's fists, the nights she slept with a knife under her pillow, the fear that followed her across state lines. Thomas clears his throat, breaking the tension. There's more, he says. The PI's been tracking a phone. Malik's. It's active. In Chicago. Amara's knees buckle, but she catches herself, her hands slamming against the desk. He's here? She whispers, her voice a blade of fear and defiance. Daniel's face hardens, his eyes burning with resolve. He won't touch you, he says, his voice a vow. Not while I'm here. Amara meets his gaze, her heart pounding, torn between trust and terror. She wants to believe him, but Malik's shadow looms large, a predator she knows too well. Thomas pulls out a laptop, his fingers flying across the keys. I've got a friend pulling phone logs, he says. We'll find where he's been. Amara nods, her jaw set, her resolve steeling. She's done running, done hiding. For Lucas, for herself, she'll face this. They dig deeper, piecing together fragments. The PI's reports mention a meeting between Margaret and a man matching Malik's description, spotted at a downtown bar. Amara's breath catches, her fingers twitching as she recalls Margaret's smirk, her cryptic warnings. She knows him, Amara says, her voice cutting through the room. Margaret's not just digging, she's connected to him. Daniel's eyes narrow, his fists clenching again. Why would she work with your brother? He asks. Amara shakes her head, her mind racing. Money, power, something she's hiding. The puzzle grows, its edges sharp and dangerous. Thomas pulls up a grainy photo from a street camera. Malik, older now, his face harder, standing outside a sleek office building. Amara's heart stops, her nails biting into her palms as she stares at the man who broke her life. That's him, she says, her voice barely audible, but firm. Daniel's hand hovers near hers, not touching, but close, a silent promise. We'll stop him, he says, and her. Amara nods, her eyes locked on the photo, her resolve a fire burning through her fear. As they plan their next move, Amara's phone buzzes again, another anonymous message. You can't outrun me, little sister. Her fingers tremble, but she doesn't flinch. She hands the phone to Daniel, her eyes fierce. He's close, she says, her voice a blade. But so are we. The laptop screen glows, Malik's face staring back, a shadow they're ready to drag into the light. You're protecting a criminal, Margaret. Why? Daniel Whitaker's voice slashes through the tense air of his study, his eyes locked on the grainy photo of Malik on the laptop screen. His fists clench, knuckles white, as he leans over the desk, the weight of betrayal burning in his chest. Amara Johnson stands beside him, her jaw tight, her fingers gripping the edge of the desk so hard her nails bite into the wood. Her heart pounds a relentless hammer as the name, Malik, her brother, echoes in her mind, dragging up the pain of his fists, his threats, the life she fled. The anonymous email's words, "You can't outrun me, little sister," still sear her thoughts, but she stands firm, her eyes blazing with defiance. Thomas, the butler, scrolls through the laptop, his weathered hands steady despite the storm brewing in the room. "Got something," he says, his voice low, cutting through the silence like a blade. He pulls up a scanned document, an old financial record from Whitaker Enterprises, dated 10 years ago. Amara's breath catches, her teeth grinding as she scans the numbers. A series of wire transfers to a shell company, signed off by Margaret Whitaker. The recipient's name is buried in fine print, but Thomas highlights it. Malik Johnson. Amara's knees buckle, her hands slamming against the desk to steady herself. "He was working with her," she whispers, her voice raw, each word a wound reopened. Daniel's head snaps toward her, his eyes wide, shock etching his face. "Your brother? With my sister?" His voice cracks, a mix of fury and disbelief. Amara nods, her lips pressed tight, her heart racing as the pieces fall into place. "Malik ran drugs, debts, anything that paid," she says, her words sharp, deliberate. "He pulled me into his mess, forced me to help until I turned him in. But this is bigger." Her fingers tremble, but she doesn't flinch, her eyes locked on the screen. The document shows payments for consulting services, but the dates align with her testimony against Malik's crime ring, a truth she buried to survive. Thomas clicks on another file, a grainy email exchange between Margaret and an unnamed contact. "Found this in the PI's server," he says, his voice grim. "It's coded, but look at the timing." The emails, dated months before Amara's hiring, mention cleaning up loose ends and keeping the past buried. One line stands out: "The girl's a risk. She knows too much." Amara's chest tightens, her nails digging deeper into the desk. "They're talking about me," she says, her voice a blade cutting through the room. "Margaret knew who I was before I even set foot here." Daniel's face darkens, his fist slamming the desk, the sound a gunshot in the quiet. "She hired you to watch you," he says, his voice low, dangerous, "to make sure you didn't talk." Amara's heart stutters, her mind reeling as the truth unfolds. Margaret's hostility wasn't just prejudice, it was fear. Fear that Amara's past, her testimony, could unravel a secret tied to Whitaker Enterprises. "Your sister was in business with Malik," Amara says, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "She used his ring to wash money for the company. When I testified, I didn't just burn him, I burned her." Daniel paces, his shoes striking the floor, his hands raking through his hair. "Money laundering?" he says, his voice a growl. "My own sister?" The betrayal cuts deep, his chest heaving as he grapples with the truth. He stops, turning to Amara, his eyes searching hers. "You were a threat to her legacy," he says. "That's why she's coming for you." Amara's lips twist, a bitter smile. "I was a kid trying to survive," she says. She was a Whitaker protecting her empire. Her words sting, a rebuke to the family's power, and Daniel's face twitches, guilt mixing with rage. Thomas pulls up another record, a bank statement showing a recent payment from Margaret to the same PI firm tracking Amara. "She's still covering her tracks," he says, his voice firm, "and Malik's back in Chicago, probably on her dime." Amara's heart skips, her fingers trembling as she recalls the email's threat. "He's not just after me," she says, her voice low, fierce. "He's her weapon." Daniel's eyes meet hers, a silent vow forming. "He won't touch you," he says, his voice a steel promise. "Not while I'm here." Amara nods, her jaw set, her resolve a fire burning through her fear. She's done hiding, done running from the shadow of her brother and the weight of Margaret's schemes. But the truth is a blade, cutting both ways. It exposes Margaret's crimes but puts Amara in the crosshairs. Daniel's hand hovers near hers, not touching, but close, a gesture of trust she's starting to believe. Thomas closes the laptop, his eyes heavy with purpose. "We need more," he says. "Something to nail her." Amara's gaze falls on the desk, where Lucas's sensory book lies, its bright cover a beacon in the dim study. Her fingers brush its edge, her heart pounding with the certainty that this fight isn't just for her, it's for Lucas, for the boy who sees her. The document on the screen, with Malik's name in stark black ink, looms like a guillotine, ready to fall. You thought you could ruin me, little sister? Malik Johnson's voice snarls, low and venomous, as he looms in the doorway of the Whitaker Estates storage room, his silhouette a dark blade against the dim hallway. Amara Johnson's heart slams against her ribs, her fingers gripping the edge of a wooden crate, her nails biting into the splintered wood. Her breath catches, her jaw clenching so tight her teeth ache, as memories of Malik's fists, his threats, flood back like a tidal wave. She's trapped, the door locked behind her, Lucas's soft whimpers echoing from the living room where she left him moments ago. Her boots scrape the concrete floor, her body coiled, ready to fight or flee. You don't get to haunt me anymore, Amara snaps, her voice a steel whip, her eyes blazing despite the fear clawing at her chest. Malik's lips curl into a crooked smirk, his eyes hard, glinting with the same cruelty she fled a decade ago. He steps closer, a crowbar dangling loosely in his hand, its metal edge catching the faint light. Margaret paid me to scare you, he says, his voice a hiss. But this is personal. Amara's heart stutters, her mind racing. Margaret's betrayal, the financial records tying her to Malik's crime ring, the emails, all of it led to this moment. She'd been checking the storage room for Lucas's sensory toys when Malik slipped in, locking the door with a click that echoed like a gunshot. Her phone left on the kitchen counter is useless now, and Daniel is at a board meeting downtown, unaware of the danger closing in. Amara's fingers tighten on the crate, her knuckles whitening as she calculates her odds. You're her dog, she says, her words sharp, cutting, doing her dirty work, pathetic. Malik's smirk vanishes, his grip on the crowbar tightening, his eyes flashing with rage. Don't push me, he growls, stepping closer, the crowbar swinging slightly, a threat unspoken. Amara's breath hitches, her body tensing as she scans the room. Shelves of old files, a rusted lock on the door, a narrow vent too small to crawl through. Her heart pounds for Lucas, alone and vulnerable, his meltdown brewing without her song to calm him. Lucas needs me, she says, her voice steady, a blade of defiance. You won't stop that. Malik laughs, a cold, jagged sound. That kid, he's your weakness, always were too soft. Amara's chest burns, her nails digging deeper into the wood, drawing a faint sting of blood. She remembers the sensory book, the drawing Lucas made, her stick figure holding his hand, and her resolve hardens. She won't let Malik take that from her. She steps forward, her boots firm, closing the gap between them. You're wrong, she says, her voice low, fierce. He's my strength. Malik's eyes narrow, his crowbar rising, but before he can swing, a crash echoes from the living room. Lucas screaming, his meltdown erupting. Amara's heart lurches, her body moving on instinct. She lunges, shoving Malik hard, catching him off guard. He stumbles, the crowbar clattering to the floor, but he recovers fast, his hand grabbing her wrist, twisting until pain shoots up her arm. She bites back a cry, her free hand clawing at his face, nails raking skin. Let go, she hisses, her voice a blade, her knee slamming into his thigh. Malik roars, shoving her back, and she hits the crate, her shoulder throbbing. But she doesn't fall. Lucas's screams grow louder, a desperate plea that fuels her fight. Amara scrambles for the crowbar, her fingers brushing its cold metal, but Malik's faster, kicking it out of reach. You're not leaving, he snarls, his hand closing around her arm again, dragging her toward the door. Amara's heart races, her mind flashing to her old life, picking locks to escape Malik's traps, surviving his wrath. She twists, her elbow slamming into his ribs, breaking free for a moment. Her hands fumble for the door's lock, her fingers trembling but precise, muscle memory kicking in from years of survival. The lock clicks, but Malik's on her again, his arm wrapping around her neck, squeezing tight. You'll pay, he whispers, his breath hot against her ear. Amara's vision blurs, her lungs burning, but Lucas's cries cut through the haze, a beacon pulling her back. She stomps hard on Malik's foot, her boot grinding into his toes, and he loosens his grip, cursing. She breaks free, stumbling into the hallway, her chest heaving, her eyes locked on the living room, where Lucas rocks wildly, his hands flailing. Amara runs, her boots pounding the floor, her heart a war drum. She reaches Lucas, kneeling, her voice soft but urgent. "I'm here, Lucas," she says, her hands hovering near his, not touching, respecting his space. His screams are quiet, his rocking slowing, but Malik's footsteps echo behind her, heavy and relentless. She turns, her body shielding Lucas, her eyes fierce. "You won't touch him," she says, her voice a vow, her hands trembling but ready to fight. Malik pauses, his smirk returning, the crowbar back in his hand, a promise of violence hanging in the air. The hallway stretches behind him, a tunnel of danger, but Amara's resolve is a fire, unyielding. Lucas's sensory ball rolls across the floor, its bright colors a defiant spark against the looming threat of Malik's shadow. "You can't stop what's coming, Amara." Malik's taunt echoes in the hallway, his boots thudding closer, the crowbar glinting in his hand like a predator's claw. Amara Johnson's heart slams against her ribs, her body shielding Lucas, whose whimpers pierce the air like shards of glass. Her jaw clenches, teeth grinding as she fights the panic clawing at her chest. Lucas's small hands flail, his meltdown spiraling, and Amara's fingers tremble, itching to soothe him. But Malik's shadow looms, a threat she can't ignore. Her boots scrape the hardwood, her eyes darting for an escape, her mind racing with the skills she honed in her past life. Picking locks, outrunning danger, surviving her brother's wrath. She grabs Lucas's sensory ball, pressing it into his hands, her voice low, urgent. "Hold this, Lucas. I'm right here." His rocking slows, his fingers clutching the ball, but his whimpers persist, a plea that fuels her fire. Malik steps closer, his smirk twisting, the crowbar swinging lazily. "You're still weak," he sneers, his voice a blade. "Always were." Amara's chest burns, her nails biting into her palms as she stands, placing herself between Lucas and Malik. "Weak?" she snaps, her voice sharp, cutting. "I outran you once. I'll do it again." Her words are a defiance, a spark igniting her resolve. Malik lunges, the crowbar arcing toward her, but Amara ducks, her body moving on instinct, honed from years of dodging his rage. She shoves Lucas toward the living room, whispering, "Run, baby, hide!" Lucas stumbles, clutching the ball, his small frame disappearing behind the couch. Amara's heart lurches, but she turns, facing Malik, her boots planted firm. He swings again, the crowbar grazing her shoulder, pain flaring like fire. She bites back a cry, her hand grabbing a nearby vase, hurling it at him. It shatters against his arm, staggering him, and she bolts, her boots pounding toward the study where she knows Margaret's secrets hide. Her shoulder throbs, her breath ragged, but she doesn't stop. The study door looms ahead and she slams through it, her hands fumbling for the desk. Malik's footsteps thunder behind her, his curses a storm chasing her heels. Amara's fingers tear through drawers, paper scattering like leaves, her heart racing as she searches for something, anything to end this. Her eyes catch a glint. A USB drive, tucked beneath a stack of files, its black casing marked with a faint MW at Margaret Whitaker. Her breath catches, her fingers snatching it, her nails scraping the plastic as she clutches it tight. Malik bursts in, his crowbar raised, his eyes wild. "Give it up, Amara," he growls, stepping closer. "You're done." Amara's back presses against the desk, her heart a war drum, but her eyes blaze, unyielding. "You're done," she says, her voice a blade, slipping the USB into her pocket. She feints left, dodging as Malik swings, the crowbar splintering the desk's edge. Her hands find a paperweight, heavy and cold, and she hurls it, striking his knee. He roars, stumbling, and she sprints past him, her boots skidding as she races back to the living room. Lucas huddles behind the couch, his sensory ball clutched tight, his whimpers softening as he sees her. Amara kneels, her voice steady despite the pain in her shoulder. "You're safe, Lucas," she says, her hand hovering near his, not touching. His eyes meet hers, trust flickering, and she hums a soft note of the folk song, calming his storm. Her heart swells, but Malik's footsteps echo again, slower now, his knee hobbled. She stands, her fingers tightening around the USB, her resolve of fire burning through her fear. She pulls Lucas to his feet, guiding him toward the kitchen, her eyes scanning for a phone. Her own lies abandoned on the counter, and she grabs it, her fingers flying to dial Thomas, the butler, who's off-site but her only ally. "Thomas," she whispers, her voice urgent. "Malik's here. I've got proof. Get the police." Thomas's voice crackles through, calm but sharp. "Hold tight. I'm 10 minutes out." Amara's chest heaves, her shoulder throbbing, but she nods, her jaw set. She turns to Lucas, her voice soft. "Stay here, baby. I'll be back." She slips into the hallway, her boots silent now, her body low as she moves toward the back door. Malik's curses grow louder, his limping steps closing in. Amara's mind flashes to her old life, picking locks to escape Malik's traps, slipping through shadows to survive. She reaches the door, her fingers working the rusted lock. Muscle memory guiding her. It clicks open, but Malik's hand grabs her arm, yanking her back. "You're not leaving," he snarls, his grip bruising. Amara twists, her elbow slamming into his ribs, breaking free. She stumbles outside, the USB still in her pocket, her heart pounding with the weight of what it holds. Thomas's voice echoes in her mind. Proof. And she knows the USB is the key to ending Margaret's schemes. She sprints toward the garage, her boots crunching gravel, her shoulders screaming with each step. Malik's shouts fade, his hobbled knee slowing him. But the danger lingers, a shadow she can't outrun yet. She reaches the garage, her hands fumbling for the car keys Daniel keeps there, her fingers trembling but precise. The USB burns in her pocket, a weapon she's not yet wielded. She glances back at the house where Lucas waits, his sensory ball a beacon of her promise to protect him. Her phone buzzes. Thomas texting. "Police en route. Stay safe." Amara's breath steadies, her resolve a steel rod. She's not just surviving now, she's fighting. For Lucas, for herself, for the truth. The USB in her pocket is a ticking bomb, ready to blow Margaret's secrets wide open. But the sound of Malik's limping steps, distant but relentless, warns her the battle's not over. "You sold our family for your own greed, Margaret." Daniel Whitaker's voice thunders through the boardroom of Whitaker Enterprises, his eyes blazing as he slams the USB drive onto the mahogany table. The room freezes, 11 board members' faces a mix of shock and unease, their hands gripping folders, pens stilled mid-scribble. Amara Johnson stands beside him, her boots planted firm, her jaw clenched tight, her heart pounding like a war drum. Her shoulder throbs from Malik's attack, but her eyes burn with defiance. The USB, a black shard of truth. Her weapon against Margaret Whitaker's empire of lies. Her fingers twitch, itching to hold Lucas's sensory ball, but she stands tall, her resolve a fire that won't be snuffed out. Margaret, seated at the table's far end, rises, her tailored blazer crisp, her face a mask of icy control. "You're delusional, Daniel," she snaps, her voice sharp, cutting like glass. "Accusing me of some maid's vendetta? Pathetic." Her words sting, aimed at Amara's skin, her place. But Amara doesn't flinch. Her nails bite into her palms, her chest burning with the weight of Margaret's betrayal. The financial records, the emails, the decade-old deal with Malik that funded her rise while shattering Amara's life. "I'm not your maid," Amara says, her voice low, a blade slicing through the room. "I'm the one who survived your brother." Daniel's hand hovers near hers, a silent anchor, as he clicks a remote, projecting the USB's contents onto the screen. Bank transfers flash, stark numbers linking Whitaker Enterprises to Malik's shell company, signed by Margaret. Gasps ripple through the board, faces paling as the truth unfolds. "You laundered money through Malik's ring," Daniel says, his voice a growl, each word a hammer. "You used Amara's brother to hide your dirt, and when she testified, you buried her to save yourself." Margaret's lips part, her eyes darting, but she recovers, her smirk cold. "Lies," she hisses. "You have no proof." Amara steps forward, her boots striking the floor, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "I am the proof," she says, her words cutting through Margaret's facade. "I testified against Malik. I ran from him, from you, but I'm done hiding." Her heart races, her mind flashing to the storage room, Malik's crowbar, Lucas's whimpers. She pulls a folded paper from her pocket, the anonymous email, "You can't outrun me, little sister," and tosses it onto the table. "You sent this," she says, her eyes locking on Margaret's. "You hired him to scare me, to keep your secrets safe." The board murmurs, chairs shifting, eyes flicking between Margaret and the screen. Philip Albright, the oldest member, leans forward, his voice gruff. "Explain this, Margaret." Her face twitches, her hands clenching, but she doesn't speak. Daniel presses the remote again, revealing an email from Margaret to the PI. "The girl's a risk. Bury her past." The room erupts in whispers, the board's composure cracking. Margaret's eyes narrow, her voice a hiss. "You're ruining us, Daniel," she says. "For her?" Daniel's fist slams the table, silencing the room. "No," he says, "for the truth." Amara's chest swells, her breath shallow but steady as she steps closer to the screen. "You didn't just hurt me," she says, her voice a blade, each word aimed at Margaret. "You hurt Lucas. You used my pain to protect your power, but it ends here." Her words ring out, a declaration of her strength, her survival. The board watches, some nodding, others frozen, as her presence fills the room. Not a maid, not a victim, but a woman unyielding. Linda Cho, a sharp-eyed executive, stands. "This is damning," she says, her voice firm. "Margaret, you're done." Margaret's face pales, her hands trembling, but she tries one last defense. "You can't trust her," she snaps, pointing at Amara. "She's a nobody, a liar." Amara's jaw tightens, her fingers curling, but she doesn't back down. "I'm a survivor," she says, her voice clear, cutting. "And survivors tell the truth." The board falls silent, her words a weight that shifts the room's tide. Philip clears his throat, his voice heavy. "Margaret, step down. Now." Her smirk collapses, her shoulders sagging, the fight draining from her eyes. Daniel nods to Thomas, who's been waiting by the door, his face grim but resolute. "Police are outside," Thomas says, his voice low, final. "They've got Malik in custody, and they want to talk to you, Margaret." Her eyes widen, her hands clutching the table. But there's no escape. The board votes unanimously to remove her, their hands raised like a guillotine falling. Margaret stands, her face a mask of fury and defeat, and walks out, her heels clicking, a defeated rhythm. Amar exhales, her shoulders loosening, her heart still racing, but lighter now. Daniel's hand brushes hers, a fleeting touch, his eyes heavy with gratitude, with awe. "You did it," he says, his voice soft. A vow. Amara nods, her lips pressing tight, her eyes flickering to the screen, where the USB's truth still glows. She thinks of Lucas, safe now, his sensory ball a beacon of her promise to him. The boardroom hums with tension, but also with a new respect. A shift Amara feels in their gazes, not pity, but recognition. The USB lies on the table, its black casing a silent testament to the truth they've unleashed. A spark that set Margaret's empire ablaze and lit Amara's path forward. "You're finished, Margaret. Face it." Daniel Whitaker's voice cuts through the tense air of the Whitaker Estates foyer, his eyes blazing as he confronts his sister, Margaret, one last time. Her tailored blazer hangs loose, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clutches a leather briefcase, the last remnant of her power. Amara Johnson stands nearby, her boots planted firm, her jaw clenched tight, her heart pounding with the weight of victory. Her shoulder still throbs from Malik's attack, but her eyes burn with defiance. The USB's truth, Margaret's money laundering scheme with Malik, still fresh from the boardroom takedown. Lucas huddles beside her, his small fingers clutching her hand, his sensory ball tucked under his arm. "You can't erase me," Margaret snaps, her voice a hiss, but it's weak, a blade dulled by defeat. "This family is mine too." Daniel steps closer, his fists clenching, his voice low, lethal. "You sold our family for your greed. You're done." His words land like a hammer, and Margaret's smirk crumbles, her eyes darting to the door where two police officers wait, their badges glinting like a guillotine. Amara's chest tightens, her nails biting into her palms as she watches Margaret's empire collapse. The woman who called her a liability, who used Malik to threaten her, now stripped bare. The officers step forward, one cuffing Margaret's wrists, the click of metal a final note in her downfall. "You'll regret this," Margaret hisses, her eyes locking on Amara, venomous but powerless. Amara's lips pressed tight, her voice steady, cutting. "I survived worse than you. I'm still here." Her words are a shield, a declaration of her strength, and Margaret's face twists, her defiance snuffed out. The officers led her out, her heels dragging, her briefcase left behind, a hollow relic of her betrayal. Daniel turns to Amara, his eyes heavy with guilt, with gratitude. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice raw, each word scraped from a place he's kept buried. "For what she did, for what I did." Amara's heart stutters, her fingers loosening around Lucas's hand. She wants to hold on to her anger, but Lucas's soft hum, his trust in her, softens her resolve. "You're not her," she says, her voice low, firm. "You chose truth." Daniel's shoulders sag, his breath catching, as if her words have lifted a weight he's carried too long. Lucas tugs at her hand, his eyes bright, his voice rare and clear. "Mama Amara," he says, the words a spark that ignites the room. Amara's breath catches, her chest swelling, her eyes burning as she kneels, her hands hovering near his. "Hey, baby," she whispers, her voice trembling but warm, her fingers brushing his cheek. Lucas leans into her touch, his sensory ball rolling to the floor, a bright beacon of their bond. Daniel watches, his throat tightening, a mix of awe and gratitude etching his face. He kneels beside them, his hand resting on Lucas's shoulder, a silent vow to be better, to see Amara for who she is. Thomas the butler steps into the foyer, his weathered face creased with relief. "Malik's locked up," he says, his voice steady. "Charged with assault, extortion, and the old drug charges are being reopened." Amara nods, her jaw set, her heart lighter but still racing. The shadow of her brother, the man who broke her life, is gone, caged by the truth she helped expose. Daniel's eyes meet hers, a flicker of something new. Trust, respect, a beginning. "You didn't just save Lucas," he says, his voice soft, a promise. "You saved us." Amara stands, her boots firm, her eyes fierce but warm. The foyer hums with a new energy, the weight of Margaret's schemes lifted, the air no longer thick with fear. Lucas clings to her hand, his hum steady, and Amara feels it. A shift, a home forming where pain once stood. The sensory ball lies on the floor, its colors vibrant, a symbol of the justice they've won and the family they're building. "You gave my son a home again, Amara. Now let me give back." Daniel Whitaker's voice cuts through the quiet of the Whitaker estate's living room, his eyes locked on Amara Johnson, steady and raw with purpose. His hands grip a stack of papers, blueprints for something bigger than himself, as he stands before her. Amara's heart pounds, her fingers twitching at her sides, her jaw clenched tight to hold back the flood of emotions. Relief, hope, the weight of surviving Malik's attack, and Margaret's betrayal. Lucas sits nearby, his small hands clutching his sensory ball, humming softly, a beacon of calm in the storm they've weathered. "Give back?" Amara's voice is sharp, a blade honed by years of being unseen, her boots planted firm on the hardwood floor. Her eyes narrow, searching Daniel's face for sincerity, still wary after his initial rejection. His words, "You're the maid. You clean," lingering like a bruise. "I didn't do this for you," she says, her words deliberate, cutting. "I did it for Lucas." Daniel's face twitches, a flicker of guilt, but he steps closer, his voice low, unwavering. "I know," he says, "and that's why I'm doing this." He spreads the papers on the coffee table, revealing plans for the Light of Lucas Foundation, a nonprofit to support autistic children and immigrant families. Amara's breath catches, her fingers loosening, her eyes scanning the documents, program outlines, funding proposals, a mission statement centered on compassion. "This is real?" she asks, her voice softer now, a crack in her armor. Daniel nods, his hand steady, his eyes burning with resolve. It's for kids like Lucas, he says, and for people like you, survivors who deserve a chance. Amara's chest tightens, her nails biting into her palms as she fights the urge to pull back. She spent years hiding, her past with Malik a shadow she outran, but Daniel's gesture feels like a spotlight, illuminating her strength. You're not just throwing money at this, she says, her voice a challenge. What's your stake? Daniel's lips press tight, his throat bobbing as he swallows hard. My stake is you, he says, his voice raw, each word a vow. You showed me what I was too blind to see. I failed Lucas once. I failed you. This is me making it right. She steps closer, her boots scuffing the floor, her eyes fierce but searching. Right for who? She asks, her voice low, cutting. For your conscience or for us? Daniel's shoulders sag, his hands spreading the papers wider, a gesture of surrender. For all of us, he says. For every kid who needs what you gave Lucas. For every family who's been pushed aside. Amara's heart stutters, her fingers brushing the papers, her mind racing with the possibility. A chance to use her pain, her knowledge, to build something lasting. Thomas, the butler, steps into the room, his weathered face creased with pride. I've got contacts ready, he says, his voice firm, a soldier reporting for duty. Community centers, therapists, donors. They're waiting for your call. Amara's eyes flick to him, her chest swelling, her resolve a fire reigniting. She thinks of the community center, the kids she taught to find calm in music, the life she carved out despite her past. I want in, she says, her voice steady, a blade of purpose. Not as a figurehead, as a leader. Daniel nods, his eyes softening, a smile breaking through. You're the heart of this, he says. Program director, full control, and I'll fund your degree. Child psychology, what you started. Amara's breath catches, her hands trembling, her heart pounding, with a hope she hasn't dared feel since Malik stole her dreams. My degree? She asks, her voice cracking, raw. Daniel steps closer, his hand hovering near hers, not touching, but close. You deserve it, he says. Lucas deserves you. Lucas's hum grows louder, his sensory ball rolling across the floor toward Amara. She kneels, picking it up, her fingers brushing his, her eyes warm with love. We'll do this together, Lucas, she whispers, her voice a promise. His small hand curls around hers, his hum steady, a trust that anchors her. Daniel watches, his throat tightening, his chest heaving with gratitude, with awe. He's not just redeeming himself, he's building something new, something real, with the woman who saved his son. They move to the study, Amara's boots striking the floor with purpose, Daniel and Thomas flanking her like allies in a war won. They draft plans, Amara's voice leading, her ideas sharp, music therapy programs, scholarships for immigrant families, safe spaces for kids like Lucas. Her hands fly across a notebook, her handwriting bold, her heart racing with the weight of what's possible. Daniel pledges millions, his voice firm, his eyes locked on her, a silent vow to follow her lead. Thomas makes calls, his fingers quick, securing partners, setting dates for a launch event. The room hums with energy, a fire kindled by their shared purpose. Amara's shoulder still aches from Malik's attack, but the pain is a reminder. She survived, and now she's building. She glances at Lucas, playing quietly, his sensory ball a bright spark in his hands. This is for you, she says, her voice soft, fierce, a promise to the boy who sees her. Daniel's hand brushes hers, a fleeting touch, his eyes heavy with respect. And for you, he says, his voice a whisper, a truth. The papers on the table spread like a map to a new future. The light of Lucas' foundation, a beacon rising from the ashes of Margaret's schemes and Malik's threats. Amara's notebook lies open, her bold handwriting a testament to her strength, a spark ready to light 1,000 lives. You're my family now, Mama Amara, right? Lucas's small voice slices through the quiet of the Whitaker estate's garden, his eyes bright, his hands clutching the sensory ball as he looks up at Amara Johnson. Her heart slams against her ribs, her breath catching, her jaw clenching to hold back the flood of emotions. Love, awe, the weight of surviving to hear those words. She kneels, her boots sinking into the soft earth, her fingers hovering near his, not touching, respecting his space. Lucas's hum is steady, a beacon of trust, and Amara's chest swells, her eyes burning with a joy she's never dared feel. Daniel Whitaker stands nearby, his hands in his pockets, his face soft, a smile breaking through the guilt he's carried since he first cast her out. "Always, Lucas," Amara says, her voice low, warm, each word a vow carved in stone. "I'm right here." Her fingers brush his cheek, gentle but firm, and Lucas leans into her touch, his sensory ball rolling to the ground, its bright colors a spark in the grass. Amara's heart races, her mind flashing to the battles she's fought. Malik's crowbar, Margaret's venom, Daniel's initial rejection, each a blade she's dodged to stand here, whole. Daniel steps closer, his shoes crunching the earth, his eyes heavy with gratitude, with something deeper he's not yet named. "You've changed everything," he says, his voice raw, cutting through the air like a confession. "Not just for Lucas, for me." Amara's lips press tight, her nails biting into her palms as she fights the urge to deflect. She spent years hiding, her past a shadow she outran, but Daniel's words, his trust, feel like a spotlight on her strength. "I didn't plan this," she says, her voice steady, a blade of truth. "I just saw a boy who needed me." Daniel's smile widens, his hand hovering near hers, a silent promise of partnership. They move to a small arbor Daniel built, its wooden frame draped with ivy, a quiet space for a ceremony that's not a wedding, but a commitment. Amara's boots strike the ground with purpose, her simple navy dress swaying, her heart pounding with the weight of this moment. Lucas clings to her hand, his hum a melody, while Thomas, the butler, stands nearby, his weathered face creased with pride. A few close friends, community center volunteers, a therapist who's seen Lucas thrive, gather, their presence a warm circle against the world's noise. Daniel faces Amara, his eyes locked on hers, his voice steady. "I vow to protect your strength," he says, his words sharp, deliberate. "To make room for your voice, even when it shakes." Amara's chest tightens, her fingers trembling, but she meets his gaze, her voice firm. "I vow to build something real," she says. "For us, for Lucas." Her words cut through the air, a promise forged in fire. Lucas claps, his small hands a burst of joy, and the group laughs, the sound a spark that lights the garden. Amara's mind flashes to a letter she received that morning, slipped under the estate's gate, its envelope worn, the handwriting her mother's. "I'm proud of you, Amara. I want to see you again." Her throat closes, her fingers clutching the letter in her pocket, its weight a bridge to a family she thought she'd lost. She hasn't responded yet, but the possibility of reunion, of healing, burns bright, a flame she's ready to carry. She pulls the letter out, showing it to Daniel, her voice soft but fierce. "My mom," she says. "She found me." Daniel's hand brushes hers, a fleeting touch, his eyes warm. "Then we'll find her together," he says, his voice a vow. They kneel beside Lucas, planting a cherry tree, its roots sinking into the earth, a symbol of their new beginning. Amara's hands press the soil, her fingers steady, her heart racing with hope. Lucas's small hands join hers, his hum blending with her soft folk song, a melody that calms his world. Daniel's hands work beside them, his sleeves rolled up, his face soft with purpose. The tree stands tall, its branches a promise of growth, of life rising from pain. Later, Amara steps into the South Chicago Community Center, her boots clicking with confidence, her heart lighter than it's ever been. The room is packed, 50 women in folding chairs, their eyes bright with anticipation. Amara takes the microphone, her hands steady, her voice clear, cutting. "I'm Amara Johnson," she says, her words a blade of truth. "Some of you know my story, running from a past that tried to break me. But I'm here to tell you, surviving isn't enough. You've got to choose to stand, to be seen." Her chest swells, her eyes scanning the crowd, seeing nods, a woman in the front wiping her face, another clutching a notebook tight. I was called a maid, a nobody, she continues, her voice fierce, each word a spark. But a boy saw me. A man learned to see me, and I learned to see myself. Her hands grip the microphone, her heart pounding with the weight of her journey, from Malik's threats to Margaret's schemes, from Daniel's rejection to his redemption. The women lean forward, their eyes locked on her, their silence a testament to her power. A young woman, barely 20, raises her hand, her voice trembling. How do you forgive yourself for running? She asks. Amara's breath catches, her lips pressing tight. You don't forgive running, she says. You honor it. It kept you alive. Then you choose to stay. The room erupts in applause, a wave of respect, of recognition. Amara steps back, her heart racing, her eyes burning with a release she's never felt. She's not just a survivor, she's a light, a voice for those still in the dark. As the women file out, some hug her, others whisper thanks, their hands clutching hers, their eyes reflecting her strength. Amara's chest swells, her resolve a fire that won't dim. Back at the estate, she sits by the fireplace, Lucas asleep on her lap, his sensory ball tucked under his arm. Daniel joins her, his hand resting on her shoulder, his eyes soft. You were incredible, he says, his voice low, a promise. Amara smiles, her fingers brushing Lucas's hair, her heart steady. We're incredible, she says, her voice warm, fierce. The cherry tree outside stands tall, its silhouette a beacon in the night, a testament to their family, their fight, their future. Moral lesson. True justice isn't just defeating the enemy, it's building a world where compassion outshines prejudice, where every survivor's voice can rise. Amara's notebook lies open on the table, its pages filled with plans for the light of Lucas Foundation, a spark that will light 1,000 lives, a legacy born from pain but forged in love. The story of Amara and Daniel reminds us that true justice isn't just about defeating prejudice. It's about building a world where compassion and trust triumph over pain, where every survivor's voice can rise. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you faced a moment where standing up changed everything? Share your stories in the comments below. Your words might light someone else's path. Thank you for watching, for feeling this journey with us. We'll see you in the next story, where hope always finds a way.